Football has come back. People are going there to watch football. So many social gatherings are going on now. People should be conscious of this.
The second wave of COVID-19 is raging, and for me, it's about taking responsibility and going as far as checking people before interviewing them.
People were in their houses, some people were not able to go to work, and it was because of the COVID-19. But if we can be able to stay safe, put on our face masks, it's going to help us come out and work again, because we are on the lockdown because we are trying to avoid the spread. So if we can be able to stay on the lockdown and avoid, touching and keeping in contact with other people, we'll be able to come out again. It will be faster for us to come out. But the more we keep going out, going to parties and going around super crowded environment, the more we keep going down into the lockdown and the economy keeps going down.
These people belong to the group of Nigerians taking responsibility.
I observe all the protocols. I work with my sanitizer and I'm always on my marks.
I'm wearing my marks and then always checking my temperature. The second wave of the COVID-19 is here and is real.
Ironically, the super spreaders cynically remain convinced that COVID-19 is not real, and as a result, they walk the street without face masks. Some, on the other hand, only carry the masks in their handbags or pockets, and when accosted, they quickly bring it out and wear it just to blend. Dr. Joshua Usman, Chairman, Clinical Practice Committee, Diff Medical Center, says Nigeria is in a difficult phase of COVID-19, with the new strand proving to be more potent.
It's quite an alarming situation. People are dying by the droves. In fact, some of these deaths, I believe, are underreported. The number of cases I also believe are underreported. I just believe that people will just key into this and understand what is going on and try to keep the measures that have been put in by government. This new wave came with new variants that they have not been identified. There are different variants in different countries, and even within a country there are 2 types or 3 types of variants. So it's quite alarming, like I said, and I believe that people should really try to believe that this thing exists. In fact, the number of prominent people that have died, 2 weeks ago we lost over 20 doctors in 1 week. I know many professors of medicine that have died. I know very prominent Nigerians that have died. It is no respecter of person. It is no respecter of social strata. Ex-presidents, serving presidents, current president, now all governors are surviving it. We are lucky that we've not lost any governor, but we know that senators have died of this condition. We know a very prominent person in the presidency died of this condition. I just want to plead to Nigerians, I want to plead to my fellow citizens to please appreciate and understand that this thing is real and is there. They must take precaution. We are all exposed now to it. They should forget about the social, the herd immunity that may be there. Herd immunity is not going to protect us. We need to protect ourselves, and we need to go into the vaccine to get a vaccine for this condition for our citizens.
For Nurse Omowamke, Head Accident and Emergency Camp David Nursing Corps, it is simply about avoiding large gatherings and maintaining social distance at all times.
COVID-19, this second wave, this pandemic, it came like a blow, higher than 2020, to be frank, because we have a lot of number of patients now. Just within 2 weeks of the second wave of this COVID-19, we lost about 20 doctors. 20 doctors were dead in Nigeria. Without number of nurses is even uncountable, clinical assistants uncountable. So to be frank, COVID-19 is very, very real.
They said since assessing the hope offered by the arrival of the vaccine is not accessible for all at once, Nigerians must imbibe laid down COVID-19 protocols with all diligence, as it is now a matter of life and death.
Trying to avoid this knockdown, let us try to follow the rules and regulations of the NCDC, which is very, very easy to observe. All they are trying to let us know is we should avoid all this large gathering. We should always use our face masks. Don't go out without face masks. Don't say this is my colleague in the office, I don't need to wear face mask. Let's wear face mask. Do you know where your colleague is coming from? Do you know who your colleagues have met with on the way? So let us try to use these face masks. Wash your hands. Use sanitizers. If we can really follow the instructions, we can be able to contend with it.
We must continue to advocate We must continue to advocate, we must continue to plead to people. Religious leaders must come in, community leaders must come in, the government must continue to talk. I want to plead with the National Orientation Agency to also create leaflets, create awareness in various dialects across the country so that people will understand and key into it and understand that we need to nip this on the board. We're all thinking that by December this thing will go, but it's rather increasing and it's increasing rapidly.
Moving on now, with some countries already on second wave lockdown, the experience of first lockdown was unpalatable and many lives and livelihoods were lost. What should Nigeria and Nigerians do differently so that the country, which is already in COVID-19-induced recession, is not further crippled economically? This is the highlight of our next report.
In March 2020, based on reports from the Nigeria Center for Disease Control on the rising cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria, the federal government imposed a restriction on movement in Lagos State and Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, to stop the spread of the virus. The restriction also covered Ogun State, which shares boundaries with Lagos, but did not include hospitals, food shops, petrol stations, and other essential services. Although necessary at the time to curb the community spread of the COVID-19 disease, the lockdown, which was later extended to all the states of the Federation, posed a great challenge for the economy, where millions of people rely on their daily earnings for survival. 50-year-old Carlos Akowe from Kogi State was one of the numerous Nigerians displaced by the COVID-19 restrictions. The father of four was once gainfully employed in the hospitality industry until March last year.
Actually, before 30th March, when before the announcement, I was actually working in the hospitality industry, and that has been my only means of livelihood, where I take care of my children that are in school and pay my bills. But when I got the announcement that we should stop coming to work and our presence was no longer needed in our place of work as a result of the COVID-19 lockdown, since then I've been in the house, and only God knows how I'm managed to survive now. Yes, I've actually, because of the lockdown, it is even very difficult for you to have access or go out to look for a job, because nobody was available. You cannot go to any office. You cannot go to any even companies to ask for a job, because nobody was available, because we were all locked up in the house. Out of job for about 10 months now. Since that, but I was lucky to have begged a neighbor who gave me a plot of land where I was able to farm a little beans, and you understand. And for it to come up, you have to take like some months again. You understand. Only I've been borrowing from friends who are well-to-do, and I've been borrowing. Right now, as I'm talking to you, if I go to them, they are tired of giving me, because they don't even know when I'll be able to pay back, because I'm out of job, and they don't know when I'll be employed or when I will get the job again. So right now, as I'm talking to you, I'm living between my hand and mouth.
Hearing his harrowing tales, one can easily understand Carlos' apprehension over a possible second lockdown.
Now, as I'm talking to you, we have not survived the effect of the first lockdown. The news of the second one knocked me down on my feet. And right now, as I'm talking to you, and I hardly sleep because of what I passed through now. If eventually the second lockdown comes up, then I don't know what is going to happen to me, because I'm beginning to develop a BP already, which I never had before.
Just like Carlos, others recounted how the lockdown of 2020 affected their incomes.
We were not going to work, and we were not paid for those 3 months. We were on lockdown up till when we resumed. So during that time, it was something else. So I was affected in so many ways, financially, health-wise, and otherwise. A lot of things happened during that first lockdown. Food became so costly, and live in general was very, very difficult.
Imagine those people that are not civil servants, that don't work for government, like business owners, and they were stranded. Lots of them were stranded. They did not have money to feed and so many things. So the first lockdown we had, it wasn't easy.
Yes, the first wave of COVID-19 was terrible, especially the lockdown, where people cannot feed, you cannot go out for your daily economic activities. They said they are going to provide palliatives. Many of palliatives cannot get to the people that needed them.
In May 2020, federal government began a phase-by-phase relaxation of the restrictions on movements, even as concerned agencies continued advocacy and enforcement of COVID-19 protocols. By September, almost all aspects of life had gone back to normal, but not without some consequences on the economy. A report from the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics indicated that Nigeria, Africa's biggest economy, entered recession for the second time in 4 years, after a contraction in its gross domestic product for a second consecutive quarter. Economists attributed the development to the fall in oil prices as well as the negative impacts of the coronavirus pandemic on the economy.
This third quarter report, though a contraction, is much better than we expected. It's also much better than was projected by the IMF and the World Bank. This COVID-19 recession follows a pattern across the world today, with almost every country that has reported its GDP going into recession. Bringing it closer home, the South African economy in the second quarter of 2020 reported a negative growth of 50%. This is compared to Nigeria's negative growth of minus 6.1% in the second quarter of 2020. The trend of improvement between the second quarter and the third quarter clearly shows that this recession will be short-lived, and it indicates that we could actually exit recession in the fourth quarter, or worst case, in the first quarter of 2021.
The news of a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic and the lockdown measures imposed in some countries, including the UK and America, has continued to elicit responses from Nigerians who believe that Nigeria cannot afford a second lockdown.
Our economy entered recession in the last lockdown, so we cannot afford to go from recession to depression. So it is very important that the economy remain open, that we run our system in the way that is the best practice, and then give advocacy advice to people in the rural area, people who have a different understanding about whether COVID exists or not, people who have doubt.
In lieu of another lockdown, what then is the way forward?
The thing I know is that I think that we don't even have enough report on the cases of COVID death in Nigeria, because there are a lot of people who have died in their communities, died in their various homes without proper assessment being carried upon them. Nigeria should know there have been unusually some high-rate deaths in Nigeria from between 2020 and 2021. So COVID is having a major impact to play on the kind of casualties that we're having in our country. So for the government, the best option for the government, I still stand by my words, is to improve and enhance the level of advocacy that we're doing. Because people are not believing, because Africans have been saved from this pandemic, and the impact on Africans is not as huge as what has happened in developed nations, Europe and America itself. But people must understand that this thing is real. We have had people who have caught it, like Alibaba, who have come out to become very angry and said that, look, people must believe this. This is real. We must save our communities. We must save our elderly people. We must save, our family members from contracting COVID, because we don't even have the facility to sustain the rising tempo of the situation as we speak. So for us to help the society itself not to be overwhelmed, for us to help our medical staff not to be overwhelmed, it is very important that this advocacy must be taken a little bit notch higher. So, and for the government to also be very proactive in getting the vaccine in town so that we can vaccinate our health workers and then those who are most vulnerable to this disease. So it's very important. If we can approach in getting these vaccines, it will now make sure that we follow the other protocols and then ensure that lockdown does not come up in the second time.
What I think should be done is should make sure the citizens should observe the normal protocols of the COVID-19. And when you observe it, I think other activities can go on as I'm talking to you. The way I'm talking to you, I can go to the office, I can still do the normal job if the normal COVID-19 protocols can be observed.
Government should enforce all the COVID-19 protocols. They should make sure it is enforced. Before you go to any office, even in your car, make sure you are well protected. And with all if the measure is well taken care of, you don't need to lock anybody down. You don't need to. You are already protected. Now, if I protect myself like that, where is the transmission going to come from?
The way forward is that those restriction methods should be put in place, like using of the face mask, social distancing. But for the lockdown, I think there should be something else. The lockdown is too devastating on the economy and the lifestyle in general.
As the world continues to battle the pandemic, experts have continually harped on the need for citizens to take responsibility and join hands in the fight against this global disease by observing the COVID-19 protocols as laid out by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19.
Remember, lockdown is better than to be knocked down. Wearing the face mask is better than being on a ventilator. Staying home is better than the ICU. Ultimately, prevention is better than cure. Please stay safe by taking responsibility and simply observing all COVID-19 protocols to safeguard the nation's health and wealth. God bless you. I'm Lydia Sampson.
Nigeria, a nation of great people. Different tribes and languages, yet we are united in our diversity. All over the world, Nigerians are known to be very hardworking and resilient people. In our history as a nation, there have been many storms, but just like the eagle, we always soar very high above the storms. Together, as a nation, we stood against Ebola virus disease in 2014, and we conquered. Together as a nation, we shall stand against COVID-19 and we shall surely triumph. Let's do our part as citizens, obey the health authorities, stay at home, practice social distancing and proper hygiene. When this is over, and very soon it will be, we shall dance again at the Calabar Carnival, the Eyo Festival, Celebration, Ojudeoba Festival, and Aragongo Festival. When this is over, and very soon it will, we shall flock the beaches again. We shall attend our music concerts again. We shall invite the world once again at the Lagos City Marathon. When this is over, and very soon it will be, we can return to our hustle and bustle. We will gather at our churches and mosques. We shall return to our schools and institutions. Our hope is alive. We are Nigeria, and together we shall rise again. Nigeria Film Corporation, powering possibilities.
Akiri, 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 akiri. Will you wash your hands with me? I want to wash my hands with you. Come on, I will show you what to do. Wash your hands in. Wash your hands, wet them with the water. Wash your hands, now add some soap. Scrub your hands in the soap and water. Scrub above and below between the fingers too. Scrub under your nails and scrub a dub-a-doo. Rinse your hands in water. Rinse them clean, rinse away the soap. Dry your hands and go.
Akili, why do we wash our hands?
To wash away the germs.
Akili, what are germs?
They're like tiny little bugs on your hands and they can make you sick.
But but I don't see any germs on my hand.
That's because they're so tiny that you can't even see them.
Oh, wow. I want to wash the germs away. Will you wash your hands with me, Akili?
Of course! Wash your hands in clean water. Wash your hands, wet them with the water. Wash your hands, now add some soap. Scrub your hands in the soap and water. Scrub above and below between the fingers too. Scrub under your nails and scrub a dub-a-doo. Rinse your hands in water. Rinse them clean, rinse away the soap. Dry your hands and go. Great job, Haruma! Can you tell me the 4 things we did to wash our hands?
I can try.
1.
Wash our hands with water.
2.
Put soap on our hands.
3.
Scrub our hands all over.
4.
Rinse our hands clean.
Imagine more resilient in 2021, owing in part to effort of the agencies of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources who work under my leadership.
Nigeria's energy sector receives boost as President Buhari commissions Oil and Gas Excellence Center in Lagos.
President Buhari urges Nigerians to see payment of tax as a solemn obligation.
Nigeria's Governors Forum pledges commitment towards containing the rising second wave of infections in the country.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall continue our conversation on governing Nigeria's rural communities.
Now, the role of the local government, being the closest tier of government to the grassroots in rural development, cannot be overemphasized. The Nigerian political arrangement, which is a subject of discourse in some quarters, is sometimes questioned with regards to the essence of true federalism, which of course is a decentralization.
Well, it also turns out that fiscal practices are skewed in favor of both the central and state governments, coupled with issues surrounding accountability, all of which have given rise to thwarted efforts at meaningful development in the third tier of government. And this is particularly because a large percentage of Nigeria's population are mostly to be found in the rural areas. And therefore, the development of such environments cannot be overemphasized.
Well, that's right, Kingsley. And the development of rural areas impacts positively on per capita income and food production, generally speaking. And the development of the grassroots has always been the concern of every responsible and responsive government, not just in Nigeria, but elsewhere globally, because it is the outcome of a series of quantitative and qualitative changes occurring among a given rural population, whose converging effects indicate in time a rise in the standard of living.
Well, Kieran, what you've said is particularly important. Yesterday, we had the first conversation on this subject matter, and it has to do with governing Nigeria's rural communities. It isn't just a question of development. It is not to seek to convert rural areas into urban centers, as it were, but two primary reasons that we have seen lately. You've seen the so-called ungoverned spaces where there are kidnappers, bandits, and sundry criminals have taken over large swaths of spaces in the rural communities. These are in the forest area. So what has happened to the proper governance of the rural communities?
We should be responsible for those ungoverned areas.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We have the necessary apparatus, to monitor those areas, properly.
Yes.
Unlike what we have on hand right now.
That's right. It isn't just a responsibility of the local governments. You also have the traditional authorities. You also have community development associations, and particularly also
town unions.
Town unions.
Each great system.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so this is part of what we've been taking a look at in our second part of the conversation this morning, Kirian.
All right. I might add that most of the these areas that we have raised will be quite important as we make progress in this particular conversation this morning. And I want also to ensure that all Nigerians are carried along as we open up today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. And of course, we may be posing too many questions to our guests who are actually in a better position to, of course, do justice to those questions.
All right, Kirian, on that note, we'd like to welcome you to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. We're broadcasting live, as always, on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. In the course of the program, we have our regular segments, and those segments, of course, will include newspaper review, business, and others. Kirian?
All right, and my name is Kirian Umai. Welcome to the program. For now, we have to join Comfort Amodu for the morning news. Good morning, Comfort.
Good morning, Kirian and Kinsley, and good morning, Nigerians. Here's some morning news. The federal government says it will spare no effort at diversifying the nation's economy using the oil and gas industry as a pivot towards expanding revenues, enhancing the gross domestic product, generating employment, and effectively contributing to eliminating poverty in the country. President Muhammadu Buhari stated this while virtually inaugurating the National Oil and Gas Excellence Center of the Department of Petroleum Resources in Lagos. He urged all industry practitioners and relevant stakeholders to join his administration in the task of ensuring that Nigeria exploit and exploit her enormous potentials for nation building.
2020, global economies were faced with unprecedented challenges and severe shocks in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic and the attendant consequences therefrom. However, we are emerging more resilient in 2021, owing in part to effort of the agencies of the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, who work under my leadership to keep oil and gas production levels stable, optimize government revenues, and ensure domestic energy security.
Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has made a case for Nigerians to see the payment of taxes as a solemn obligation, saying that no nation has ever made progress without having to pay for it. Declaring open the first national tax dialogue, the president also insists that foreign businesses must not be allowed to continue exploiting the nation's markets and economy without paying appropriate taxes.
This was clearly demonstrated by the provision of the Finance Act 2019, whereby government exempted small companies from tax and reduced the income tax rate for medium companies from 30% to 20%. We went further to cushion the burden of tax on the low-wage workers by exempting minimum wage from personal income tax.
And in other news, the Nigerian Governors Forum has disassociated itself from statement by Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello casting doubt on the existence of the ravaging coronavirus pandemic, while the forum pledged commitment towards containing the rising second wave of infections in the country. The Nigerian Governors Forum responded to the Governor Bello's remarks in the media at the forum's 24th teleconference on COVID-19. The forum also interfaced with global and local partners, including the World Bank, on the epidemic preparedness and innovations to facilitate COVID-19 vaccines by February 2021. And the Nigerian Center for Disease Control has announced 1,964 new COVID-19 infections in 23 states and the FCT. In the latest figures released, Lagos is still leading with 824 new cases. FCT has 246, Plateau 166, Kaduna 128, Ogun 76, Nasarawa 72, Anambra 69, Edo has 50. Rivers 45, Ondo 44, while Niger has 40, as Oyo State has 38 new cases. There were 35 new cases recorded in Adamawa, 31 in Kano, 27 in Akwa Ibom, 19 in Gombe, 13 in Kwara, 12 in Ekiti, Delta and Kebbi recorded 6 new cases each, as 5 were recorded in Bauchi, 4 in Ebonyi, 3 in Osun, and 1 in Zamfara. Now, active cases at the moment are 21,524 in Nigeria. So far, Nigeria has 116,655 confirmed cases of COVID-19, with 93,646 discharged, while 1,485 died of the virus. The National Economic Council insists there will be no lockdown of the economy for now as a result of the increase in the number of COVID-19 cases in the country. But public health measures already put in place to prevent further spread and damage will now be strictly monitored and offenders punished.
That we need to begin to talk to our people and to talk to the religious leaders to ensure that we reduce the level of gathering that we have. We also briefed NEC and on the regulations, the Health Protection Regulation 2021 as it relates to COVID-19 pandemic prevention, which we are waiting to be signed by Mr. President.
A slight yet significant reduction in the number of out-of-school children in Nigeria has sparked renewed hope in ongoing efforts by the federal government to end the lingering negative trend in Nigeria. Minister of Education Adamu spoke to the issue at a media event in Abuja.
Association of Providers and School Owners of Nigeria have been working very closely with the ministry to reduce the number of out-of-school children. At the last count, the association has taken over 1 million out-of-school children off the streets. In the last 2 years, 1,900,000 illiterate Nigerians have been able to read and write in English or the 3 Nigerian languages.
Former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan has listed restructuring of the mind to love and foster national unity as a major ingredient that could take Nigeria to the promised land. It was reported that the former #1 citizen was speaking as the chairman of the 18th Daily Trust newspaper dialogue with the theme Restructuring, Why, When and How.
We should encourage a healthy conversation on restructuring and reforms that steer national pride and love and faith of our citizens in our beloved country. Nigeria is still the greatest gift history has bestowed on us, and of course the black race.
That's the morning news highlight. Good morning, Nigeria continued shortly with Kirian and Kinsley after this break. Good morning.
A scorecard like no other. Government has put in place measures and initiatives principally targeted at youths, women, and the most vulnerable groups in our society. These included broad plan to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in the next 10 years, the creation of 75 billion naira National Youth Investment Fund to provide opportunities for the youths, and the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Survivor Fund, through which government is A. Paying 3-month salaries of the staff of 100,000 micro, small and medium enterprises. B. Paying for the registration of 250,000 businesses at the Corporate Affairs Commission. C. Giving a grant of 30,000 naira to 100,000 artisans and guaranteeing market for the product of traders. These are in addition to many other initiatives such as farmer money, trader money, market money, N-Power, N-Tech, and N-Agro. These and more in spite of a recession and a global pandemic. Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency.
Dear customer, link your Airtel number to your national identification number today. Here are easy ways you can do it. Dial *121*1# on your Airtel line and follow the prompts on the screen. Type in your 11-digit government-approved NIN number. You will receive a confirmation message to confirm your entry. You can also visit www.airtel.com.ng/NIN to link your phone number to your NIN. If you do not know your NIN, simply dial *346# to get it. No stress, no wahala.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Hello, I bring you wonderful news. The village headmaster is coming back to your screen. Mo wire abi mi o wire. Teacher no more. I fell Teacher no more. I fell Ọmọ onírẹsì ti dé.
Ajebo na better school for last gidi. Not be all this on a rugged school for Ijabi. I don't know for you.
Second, it's called Oja Village. Kadesi, we know happy at all.
And I know that even you too, you are getting a lot of orders too. Hey, we are trying, shall sweep her leg out. She was standing there. Sweep it.
I love you so much.
And how did I give you the impression that I was interested in that position?
50-year anniversary.
You mean anniversary?
I mean, that is why I talk with that now.
Not for me. Not for me because of Pamio.
Service of the NTA. Now to business. Business owners are enjoined to embrace digitization to survive effects of COVID-19. Let's now join Kunle Adeye for details of that package.
With the second wave of COVID-19 still unabated, safety guidelines have restricted a lot of activities which business owners now grapple with. Surviving the new normal now becomes survival of the fittest. A development expert, Remy Hazen, has suggested that digitizing business operations might serve as antidotes to addressing this challenge.
Digital marketing comes in easily. And when you digitalize all of your operations and bring it onto the cyberspace and reach out to the target audience that you're actually after, you will see that the restrictions will have little effect and you'll be able to cover some ground.
He said the low cost of digitization is also an advantage. And here are the details of tradings on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeye.
Our appreciation, Kunle, for the business package. Next is newspaper review.
Let's welcome Bayo Tebi for the review of some of the national dailies today.
Thank you,
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Good morning. I have the Nation newspaper. Let's begin with that. Above the nameplate of the Nation newspaper, we have Appeal Court quashes death penalty for Kano singer. It's on page 8. Terrorists didn't overrun military base, says defense headquarters. That's on page 5. Buhari mourns as ex-IG Gambo Jimeta dies. It's on page 5. New teachers' retirement age takes effect this month. The story is on page 29. Now the lead story, of course, before that, let's take this on African Development Bank, AFDB, forecasts Africa's loss of $409 billion to COVID-19 in 2 years. That's according to the forecast of African Development Bank. Now, out of school children, now 6.8 million, says federal government. And there's on page 8. Sheila boys held in Yola, on page 7. Now, Jonathan, Jega, Nwodo, Obwe disagree on restructuring. That's the lead story on the Nation newspaper. And Buhari, just at the bottom of the front page of the Nation, Buhari to NSA, end banditry around Zamfara gold mines now. That's on page 8. Kingsley.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper from above the name flag. Nigeria's telephone subscribers now 208 million, says NCC. NGF, that's the Governors Forum, distances governors from Bello's comments on COVID-19. U.S. in-flight passengers will present COVID-19 results. That's according to new President Biden. The federal government releases 6.4 billion naira to establish 38 oxygen plants. You have as an earpiece there the latest COVID-19 updates with respect to Nigeria and then the rest of the world. Fatalities in Nigeria now 1,485. And yesterday, at least 4,000 persons died in the United States from COVID-19. This story comes with a kicker. Calls for restructuring. Go to National Assembly. Presidency tells ACF, that's Arewa Consultative Forum. Nwodo and Adebanjo as agitation spreads. Restructuring absolutely necessary to deal with problems confronting us. That's according to Ogbe. Only National Assembly, not Buhari, can restructure Nigeria, says presidency. The three photographs on the front page there are captured by the caption and the headline that follow immediately. Farmers, forest guards, and members of the National Union of Road Transport Workers during a protest against the incessant abduction of their members by gunmen suspected to be herdsmen, and registering their support for the order by Governor Keredolu asking herdsmen to vacate forest reserves in Ondo State. The protest took place in Akure yesterday, Thursday. Southwest governors should employ laws to cage killer herdsmen. That's attributed to monarchs, with details on page 9. Nothing wrong with godfathers in Nigerian politics, according to a minister. It's North Central's turn to produce president, and that's according to the Niger Assembly. As Zakzaki's wife contracts COVID-19, undergoes treatment in prison. Matawale threatens crackdown on politicians as Zamfara and Kaduna bandits kill 19. Appeal court voids Kano musician's death sentence, orders retrial. And federal government contracts over 900 million naira railway e-ticketing service to concessionaire. Page 16. Bio.
Thank you, Kingsley. Good morning. Let's start with the issue relating to banditry. President Muhammadu Buhari has ordered the National Security Advisor to coordinate immediate response to rising banditry in communities in Zamfara State. It is reported that a village, Nahuche village in Bungudu local government area, had bandits on motorbikes invading the town and abducting many persons, including women. Governor Bello Mutawale was in fact informed of that invasion by a text message. It may also be recalled that the Speaker of Zamfara State, Nasir Magaya, had recently appealed to President Muhammadu Buhari to intervene in the incessant killings in Zamfara. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Information, Garba Shehu, says the National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Mungunu, is to coordinate a meeting of the Minister of Defense, Minister of Interior, and Minister of Mines and Steel to respond to security challenges fueled by illegal mining in Zamfara. The directors, the DGs of the Department of State Services, as well as National Intelligence, are also to help in tackling the challenges brought about by over 20,000 illegal miners who are undermining the economy and security in Zamfara State. Government has explained why it has to broaden its funds by deficit budgeting as a result of declining revenue all over the years. President Muhammadu Buhari said that Nigeria had to resort to deficit budgeting, which stood about 32 trillion debt as of September 2020. Speaking at the first national tax dialogue, he said, dwindling government revenue makes it necessary to place pressure on Nigerians to be alive to their responsibility as regards tax. The administration now has put in place a tax strategy policy, and it is statutorily provided for in the Finance Act of 2020. Federal Inland Revenue has been challenged and mandated to stamp out base erosion and profit shifting and plug all revenue leakages. Government agencies are also to plug all revenue leakages and ensure that their operations are automated and to cover all their activities so that Nigeria, the tax agency, will be able to interact with them most effectively. In the keynote address presented by the President of Africa Development Bank, Dr. Akiwumi Adesina, said Nigeria economy will rebound by 2% this year, 2021, and 2% by next year, 2022. He enjoined that, as far as taxes are concerned, taxes be employed to promote development. He made two specific recommendations. Private sector should be encouraged for the responsibilities of infrastructure, while also attracting foreign direct investment. He cautioned against the idea of prolonged tax holidays because he says this can be counterproductive. There is the Delhi Trust Dialogue Forum, for which there have been several perspectives to restructuring. Former President Goodluck Jonathan says, we cannot restructure Nigeria without overcoming the issues that polarizes us as a nation. He identified some of these issues as nepotism, ethnic and religious differences, and the general lack of patriotism. He was speaking as chairman of the 18 Daily Trust Dialogue. He said that Nigeria have mutual suspicion towards one another. This, he says, must be eliminated to have a better Nigeria. There were other persons too who spoke there. Speaking on the theme restructuring, why and now, Professor Atahiru Jego pointed out that heightened politicization of ethnic, regional and religious identities by politicians and opinion leaders is responsible for the clamor for restructuring. On his own part, about restructuring, the former Minister of Information and the former President of the Ohaneze Ndigbo, Nia Onwodo, says that domestic security provided for in 1960 and 1973 Constitution made Nigeria by ethnic groups, and he says that the 1999 Constitution overthrew the sovereignty of the regions, and he's therefore advocating that there should be 1999 Constitution cannot be used to regulate the activities of the nation because it was put together by 47 persons comprising of 40 military officers, and by the time President Olusegun Obasanjo was sworn in 1979, it took 4 days before the National Assembly could be inaugurated because the Constitution had not been properly put together. He advocated for a resort to the National Conference, a fresh National Conference, or go back to the 2014 National Conference. Chief Olu Ayo Adebayo also advocated for implementation of 2014 National Conference. There were other speakers too. Chief Audu Ogbe, on behalf of the Arewa Consultative Forum, asked the necessary question. He says the question is, what shape will the reform take? And he said categorically it will be impossible to revert to the regional structure. The Northern Elders Forum.
I'm sorry to jump in here. Yes. There are two issues that I would like us to, in addition to what you have said, to deal with so that we don't get pressed for time. One is on the front page, and I think Kirian also read it from the front page. I have it on the front page of the Punch newspaper. It says, that's Nigeria Governors Forum, distances governors from Bello's comments on COVID-19. This is a clear rebuke of one of their members by the other members of the Governors Forum. If you recall, Governor Yahaya Bello of Kogi State has been peddling all kinds of coronavirus conspiracy theories, including the latest in which he said that the vaccine was a killer, intended to eliminate the people, or that any person who has coronavirus should come to Kogi State, and then, of course, you will be free. Last weekend, we saw the potential super spreader event that was held, shown live on television, where there was no social distancing and very few persons wearing their masks. So the fact that the Governors Forum have now said, listen, yes, you have a right to free speech, but we do not agree with you on this strain of conspiracy theories that you've been banding all over the place. And I think that's a significant step.
Yes, the coordinator of the Governors Forum as regards COVID-19, that is the governor of Delta State, was very emphatic about that and said that COVID-19 is a scientific challenge and the world has acknowledged that, and therefore he has enjoined and advised his brother governor to avoid pronouncements that actually can endanger the public confidence in the initiatives towards fighting COVID-19.
As a matter of fact, the rebuking is coming very late, because Governor Yabelo has been on this for a very long time. Right from the beginning, he has never accepted or believed that there's COVID-19. Even when the former chief of staff, who visited him during his mother's burial, had to die of COVID-19, yet he's insisting that there's not COVID-19. And that is perhaps the reason why the NCDC, we don't have any reports on Kogi with respect to COVID-19. And one of our guests here some time ago wondered to say, why is Kogi excluded from the list of states that could have COVID-19 infected persons? So now it's a kind of confusion, because one, Kogi cannot say, look, we don't have any COVID-19 in Kogi state. And if persons are suffering from COVID-19 in that state, they may be dying without anybody attending to them. And that will also encourage the spread of the disease in that state.
Yes, it's very worrying, because Kogi incidentally, is very central in Nigeria. It's bordered by 10 other states. And even when during the lockdown, when all the states surrounding Kogi had lockdown, Kogi had not locked down. And so that is a matter that's very worrying. And something has to be done about that.
And Bayo, but there's a point of curiosity about the resolutions of the Governors Forum.
Yes.
The Governors Forum set up a committee of experts headed by Professor Yewole Tomoru to advise members on the procurement and administration of vaccines expected to arrive in Nigeria in February. Why is this another duplication of effort? The Federal Ministry of Health, and indeed we had Professor Tomoru was our guest sometime late last year. The Federal Minister of Health has already set up a committee to advise the government on the procurement and dispensing of vaccines. So why are the Governors Forum now setting up another committee for the same purpose?
Well, before the Governors Forum held their last meeting, for which they discussed the issue of COVID-19, there had been expression of concern that the states have been left out in what appears to be the distribution of vaccine that will be arriving in the country. We are expecting about 10,000 vaccines by the end of this month. And under the vaccine distribution by the African continent, we are supposed to get about another 40 million doses. So the governors are saying that they are not aware and they are not involved in the distribution of the vaccine. But the interesting point here now is that the same Professor Tomori, who is now to advise the Governors Forum about it, is also a member of the national team. Therefore, there will be a sync between the national body and the bodies established by the Governors Forum.
They just want to play a role, otherwise there would have been no need, no necessity for that, because if the Federal Ministry of Health is championing the cause of COVID-19 vaccines for COVID-19, then there will be no need for duplication of efforts, as Kinsley rightly pointed out, because that will bring some kind of confusion in the process. In any case, it's not a cheap and easy vaccine to come by, but when it gets to Nigeria, definitely the government will know how best to distribute the vaccines.
You recall that during the first lockdown, the federal government directed that Lagos, Ogun, and the FCT were the ones that were to lock down. All the other responsibilities about locking down or monitoring COVID-19 were the responsibilities of the states. So you can see that the division of the national bodies as far as COVID-19 is concerned. So this initiative, I think, is to ensure that they also are involved in the issue of COVID-19 vaccine distribution.
And by the way, this is not a by the way story, it's a significant story. Joe Erico,
yes,
an assistant coach of the Super Eagles. He had also been a goalkeeper for the national team known as Green Eagles. Passed on yesterday. He was, according to my account, 71 years or 72 years. He was a goalkeeper during his days, and he kept for NEPA Football Club of Lagos. And the reason I'm raising this is that, look, in those days, Kirian, of course, you in Enugu, you had P&T Vasco da Gama. Yeah. And then you also had Bendel Insurance. So big companies today are posting all kinds of huge profits. Where are their football teams? Where are their sports teams?
Yeah. Yes, it is indeed. The private sector contributed tremendously to engendering interest and promoting football, sports, particularly football, in the early days. I think maybe as the economy improves, they will be able to have such interest again.
All right, Bayo, we are already out of time, and I'd like to appreciate you for being part of our show as usual today. Thank you indeed, as always.
Thank you.
All right. You're also watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We are going to take a short break right now, but when we return, we'll deal with the topic for today, which is on issues concerning local government and, of course, local government administration in Nigeria. Stay with us.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Nigerian youths are about the greatest asset the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth entrepreneurship support years by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youth, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
You fit to do anything with the number. Everything is in no long thing with 444. No, they scatter your brain with plenty numbers. I beg you, daddy number 444. Or me my love for. Or just say love 444. Only my 4, my logo. Control code in your hand. 444. Is a metaphor. You can just for attention. You can subscribe for the time. Anywhere you do, whatever you do, you can use the number.
Airtel, the smartphone network. These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
The Council of Our Fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Do you know that 35% of every girl child and women are raped on a daily basis? Some are killed in the process, some take their lives in shame, others remain emotionally dead for life. It is sad. This culture is not ours, definitely not African. How did we allow bad culture to infiltrate and take over? Even if you lack fear for the law, what of fear of God? And you, why do you cover up rape acts when it happens? Remember, a problem shared is a problem half solved. Never cover any rape act because a rapist is a murderer. It could be you or your loved ones next. Women must be treated like the prize gem they are. Say no to rape.
In my house, we may look alike, but we are very different individuals. My adorable twins, they look so alike, but they don't like wearing the same things. And my little man, I had to find out the hard way because I've been trying to teach him my way. He loves to learn his own way because doing things his way is more fulfilling. Everybody believes their way is best. That's why Golden Penny Pasta is our favorite meal because due to its non-stickiness, it allows me to satisfy everybody just the way they want it.
Golden Penny Pasta.
made with durum wheat, is tasty, nutritious, a source of protein and fiber, and non-sticky. So you can cook, serve, and eat your pasta just the way you like it. Go on and enjoy your Golden Penny pasta the way you want it. With Golden Penny pasta, your way is best.
To resume our discussion on governing Nigeria's rural communities, which began yesterday, let's take this background report put together by Oyemi Ajayi.
So if we take the issue of the manner in which successive states at the center have given attention or priority to rural development, we will see that there's a very serious gap, and that has contributed very tremendously in the creation of several ungoverned spaces as we have in Nigeria today, especially in the northern part of this country where, there are, series of very thick forests, throughout the region, and therefore uninhabited by the population, giving rise, and sanctuary to these criminals and bandits.
What kind of monitoring and evaluation mechanisms do we have in place? In my village, as an example, in Sokoto, in Lugundaji, if I go there today and, I'm in an emergency situation and I call any of the security agencies, how many of them will I be able to rally around? Probably less than 10. When you have bandits in sometimes between 100 to 500 coming to attack locations. So in direct answer to your question, yes, the responsibility is on the chairman, theoretically. But what of the authority? Unfortunately, the authority is not with him. The authority for security lies in Abuja.
But the problem we have, how many state governments in Nigeria have been able to conduct a free and fair election? They have state electoral commission in the constitution. They do selections, they do not do election. They are successful for 8 years, they have a caretaker. When there's an alienation of government from the people, how are you going to have development when you select unwanted persons to be administrators at the local level? How are you going to cultivate the goodwill, the input of the people towards that development that will bring about prosperity and security of the locality? So if you are talking about security problem in the locality, the first problem is that you are imposing on them those that are not even wanted. If the people elect their councillors, they elect their chairman in the local government, and they know that they gave them the mandate to govern that particular area, I believe sure there will be a moral support for that system of government. But they abuse the system, they don't allow election, they don't allow them to perform, they usurp their resources, they usurp their power, and they become to cast blame on the local government.
These ungoverned spaces have been there. These forests, these areas have been there. But activities were on. People engaged in meaningful and profitable activities in those areas. Why can't our people engage now in those areas? That is key. And that is
Those were excerpts from the first part of our conversation on this same topic yesterday. Now, joining us in the studios here to again discuss the subject matter, let's welcome retired Deputy Inspector General of Police, Joshak Habila. DIJ, pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, viewers, and thank you for having me.
All right. Also here with us in the studios, we would like to welcome Ibrahim Goni, his Conservator General at the National Conservation Parks. Pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Nigerians.
And joining us from Kaduna studio is Professor Mohammed Issa. Professor Issa is a professor of governance with specialty in local government. Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. Thank you, sir, for waking up with us this morning.
Good morning, Nigeria. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
All right. And another professor with us here in the studio is Professor Nazif Dama, Professor of Development Economics, University of Abuja. Good morning, Prof, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Kirian, and good morning, Nigerians.
All right, gentlemen, once again, it's a pleasure to have you join us on this program. And just to recap what has prompted all of this, we're all aware of what is happening in certain parts of the country with regard to the so-called ungoverned spaces. My colleague here and I were discussing that at the commencement of the program. Vast tracts of the country's land have been taken over by bandits, by kidnappers, armed robbers, and sundry criminals. And the concern also arises as to whether no one is in charge of those locations and as to why the criminal elements now appear to have both the governance and authority over those territories. We have also seen in recent years a massive rural-urban drift. Whole villages are said to have been abandoned in certain instances, and the evidence is there in a number of cities where shanties and other informal settlements are springing up. Here in Abuja, again, the evidence is there, and the law enforcement agents have pointed out that some of those informal settlements turn out to be hotbeds for criminal activities. So that's what we are looking at. What are the constitutive factors? What can be done to ensure that there's more effective governance of rural communities? We talked about local governments yesterday, but we do know that there are a number of urban locations that are also fully local governments. We want to start today's conversation by bringing in Professor Issa, who is, of course, a specialist in local government issues at Ahmadu Bello University. Professor Issa, tell us from your perspective what is happening to our rural communities and why have they suddenly become, as it were, sanctuaries for criminal elements?
Several factors would account for this, drift from rural areas to urban areas, or the neglect, if you like, from the rural areas. From independence, Nigeria's population was about 45 million, and today you're talking about 206 million. And as at 1960, 84.59% population lived in the rural areas of Nigeria. Now today, about 56% of the population live in the urban areas. So you can see a sharp, drift from the rural areas to the urban areas. Now what has accounted for this is the failure of national planning. By independence, we had the first national development plan, we had the second national development plan, and we had the third national development plan, and then we turned to the strategic plan. Now, alongside the failure of this planning, we moved from a structure of a federal system of government to a hierarchical system of government with military intervention in Nigerian politics, and which introduced a different pattern of administrative system in Nigeria, which is more aligned to colonial structure of administration, and it led to the usurpation of the powers of what we call local government. Although between 88 to 1993, there were differences. The local governments then enjoyed, if you like, almost 100% autonomy. But from independence, apart from that period to date, the local governments have lost every semblance of their autonomy and power. And autonomy here means political autonomy, administrative autonomy, structural autonomy, funding and financial autonomy, as well as operational autonomy. So local governments are just mere caricature, or they are mere, if you like, existing in paper as obtained in the Constitution, like was pointed out that they are just theories rather than in practice. So what we see as elections in the local government are not just elections. They are just, window dressing. They are cosmetic. Therefore, you find out that the government at local level is delegitimized. It does not have the, semblance of the authority of local government. So we have a lot of problems at the local level, which impinge on the capacity of the local government. And please don't forget, prior to independence, the local government existed before the state. We had the native authorities, we had the local councils. In the Eastern region, for example, had its first reform in 1950. The Western region had its first reform in 1952, and then the Northern region had its local government reform in 1954. So the local government predates the state, and then, of course, predate what you call Nigeria today. So local governments have existed long before Nigeria existed. So if we are going to reform anything or restructure Nigeria, we should restructure Nigeria to go back to local government, not regionalism, and empower our local government to do what they have done in the past. All the groundnut pyramids you've talked about, all the achievements you've seen in the past were done with local government, not regional government. The regional governments before independence succeeded because of a viable and veritable system of local government before independence. Now with independence, everything collapsed. Politicians hijacked the system. The military too also hijacked the system. More than any level of government, the local government have been serially abused and experienced more reforms. In 88, there was the Unwosu, 84, the Dasuki reform, 88, the Unwosu reform, 89, the political reform, and of course, up until 2004, the 11-man technical committee. So more than any level of government, the local government has seen a vicissitude of power and shift of power. And these systemic imbalances affected also the capacity of the local government to deliver. And so not until we bring sanity and some degree of order into the system of our local government, our rural communities will continue to suffer. And that accounts for the drift, if you go back to my statistics, of 84.56% in 1960 rather, of 45 million people today to 44.8% of the population living in the rural area, in spite of the exponential increase in Nigeria's population, which accounts for the fact that there's a massive shift of people into the rural areas. Now, the attraction to the urban areas rather, is for job, because we underdeveloped and stagnated the rural areas. For instance, you go to the rural areas, no police station, no schools, no simple health facilities, no water supply. The basic requirement of human existence, which are fundamental right, do not exist in the rural areas, because the system to deliver this has been, if you like, stifled out of existence, which is the local government system. And so to return Nigeria back to its lost glory, we must give emphasis in our development planning to the local government and empower the local government to be able to deliver on its mandate. The Constitution is very clear, Section 7. The system of local government through democratically elected local government council is by this Constitution guaranteed. So the Constitution guarantees the existence of local government. There's no doubt about that. Now, whether state or federal government creates the local government, it's a semantics, because people want to say that the federal system we have is not like the American. Who did the Americans copy? So we must adapt our system to our culture. The Chinese did not copy anybody to be who they are today. The Swiss did not copy anybody. Rwanda did not copy anybody to be Rwandese. Nigeria must not look outside to copy somebody to be Nigerians. We must develop Nigeria along our values. And we must identify what values we want to have as a country and as a people. And our system must go back into our history, understand our history better, and develop along the patterns and the mode in which we have evolved as a country and as a people.
Professor Issa, we have to pause you there. You have done an implicit analysis of of the scenario that led to the situation we find ourselves now with respect to local government administration in Nigeria. We will come back to you for further analysis and of course to take up other perspectives of this conversation. Now let's return to Abuja here, where we have another professor, Nasif Dama. Prof, you've listened to Professor Issa and his analysis, and of course there's no gainsaying the fact that local government administration in Nigeria, their powers have been usurped structurally, operationally, and otherwise. Now, giving rise to what we know today, that Nigerians and government is held spellbound by bandits and other criminal elements who are governing a great part of this country. And till date, we don't seem to have an answer to that. So what is your own opinion with respect to the situation and how local government can be reshaped or reformed to be able to be in a position to handle the situation that we have now in our local government areas across the country, especially in the north?
Thank you very much. You see, the cogent analysis done by the professor reflects the contemporary reality of what is happening in Nigeria today. And based on the historical antecedents he has provided, the native authorities, before and immediately after the attainment of independence, represent the present-day local government model, and we know how effective and efficient they were in terms of facilitating especially agricultural development, but importantly, harmonious relationship, coexistence, minimal security and order in the rural areas. It is on record that one single landoka of native authority is able to control vast area of land because there is a very good symbiotic relationship between traditional authority, community leaders, and security agencies, because every rural area then do have an early warning signal system of possible breakdown of law and order and criminality, and instantaneous measures are often taken in order to address those fundamental issues. So remember, there's a very strong interrelationship between security, peaceful coexistence, and prosperity. Once people are not secure, they cannot be comfortable to engage in economic activities, and there will be no prosperity. Now, in the absence of security and prosperity, and in the absence of minimal, what I call irreducible minimal supply in the local government areas or in rural communities, it is what has accentuated the rural-urban drift that we have witnessed today. But importantly, the absence of symbolic authority at the local level is also perpetuating criminality and non-capacity of the local administrations to be able to detect early warning signals of criminality and nip it in the bud. Attempts have been made by these administrations, especially through the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, to give some element of financial autonomy to the local governments. Certainly the local governments, as they are structured today, we can comfortably say that they are dead. They are not doing anything. The governors have pocketed them. Anybody can emerge as a local government chairman and councillor. And where you have systemic decadence in terms of political leadership emergence and lack of autonomy on the part of the so-called local government chairmen and councillors, financially and administratively, then certainly you cannot have the anticipated trickling down effect in terms of prosperity and governance, which are symbol of authority, which will give confidence for people to engage in meaningful economic activities, knowing that there is an authority overlooking what they are doing. Now, in the absence of that, criminal elements have perpetuated and perpetrated local government areas, villages, and communities, and because traditional institutions have been neglected and are not consulted in terms of governance and authority. Now, this toxic combination of lack of consultation, lack of authority for traditional leaders, lack of financial autonomy on the part of political leaders of the local government, and absence of a clearly defined criteria for choosing competent people to govern local governments have combined to bring us to the disastrous quagmire that we are witnessing today in terms of criminality, in terms of banditry, in terms of lack of economic activity, in terms of absolute poverty, and the accentuated implication now and in the future associated with this toxic combination.
All right, Professor Nazif Idama, once again, thank you very much there for your insights. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. Let's bring in now retired Deputy Inspector General of Police, Joshak Habila. DIG, of course, you've listened to the two earlier speakers, and indeed it's a point that was also echoed yesterday when we started the conversation. It does appear that our rural communities and therefore the locations where we now find a good number of the hardened criminals who are either bandits or kidnappers for ransom and armed robbers, that there's very little security presence, particularly, say, the police. I mean, somebody can argue and say, we have so few personnel. But the symbolic authority about which Professor Nazif Idama spoke a while ago is also significant. Why do we appear to have also neglected the rural communities in terms of just even symbolic presence as part of the governance mechanism for those locations?
Thank you so much. I've heard the position of the professors, and I would like to add this, that in the rural communities, we have a situation where members of those communities and the government that is established at the local level seems not to have the capacity to be able to bring together the youth and other people within that community to be able to take their safety into their hands. Like I said, security is local. Some past years we had very robust police station, police post, police station, police post, and police division in these rural areas. And during that period, there were some element of some safety. And of course, the local government also were a little bit responsive, collaborating with the security that is on ground to be able to find out exactly what is happening and what are likely to be the security challenges, because everything that is collapsing is as a result of lack of safety in that general area. And so I make haste to say that until we are able